Welcome to Pej's Recovery Corner. We are back again on this recovery podcast. In this podcast, we talk about all things recovery or lack thereof, depending on how you roll. Today, my very special guest and good dear friend is Kurtis Gerard. Hello, Kurtis. Welcome to the corner.
Hi, Pej. Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you here. So, usually when we have guests on, we like to delve deep into their past, see where they're born, where they were raised, what their upbringing was, get into the nitty gritty, and then into the recovery portion. So, where's Kurtis from? Where were you born and raised?
Southern California. Born in the Valley, moved to Ventura County. Pretty soon after that, Thousand Oaks, Simi Valley. A little bit of popping around in the valley, but mostly there. Mm-hmm. And then my dad moved to Orange County and San Diego, and so I split my time between basically all three of those areas from Ventura County south.
So you were down in Orange County, like growing up for a little bit because your dad had moved down that way?
Yeah, by the time I was like 7, 8, my dad lived in either Mission Viejo or Aliso Viejo. I can't remember. I was pretty young. And then by the time I was like 10, he was in Oceanside. So like every other weekend, that's where I was at. And nice. Then my day-to-day was in Ventura County. By 8, I was in Simi. And then I was in Simi pretty much.
And then growing up in Simi Valley in the Ventura area, what was that like growing up there? Did you have brothers, sisters?
Yeah. I have...
Somebody's saying to me, sound quality is bad.
For who, me or you?
For me. I don't know, but... give us a second. All right, so growing up in Ventura... how was life? What was it like?
My mom had 4 of us by the time she was 24. So there was 4 kids. And she married my stepdad when I was 8. So, and we moved to Simi. And before then, it was like my mom did a lot of things. It was like all 4 of us little kids with a single mom. And it was a little chaotic, I would say, but my mom did like a bunch of, like I always like wore Gap and like Vans and I think I got my first skateboard at like 6 and it was fun. I mean, we were super close. She like took us to the beach. We did a ton of things all the time. Like I always remember being outside and always having like these little siblings. So my sister is 18 months older than me or younger than me. And then there's like a 2-year gap between my brother and then a year gap between the other brother. So, I think it was like 5. And by the time I was 5, there was 4 of us or 4 and a half, 5. But we grew, we moved to Sydney when I was 8. I remember I moved schools like middle of 4th grade. And I was like the new kid, and which was cool. But Simi was rad because like Simi was relatively safe, and like there was like a bunch of kids in the neighborhood, and I had my own room, for like probably the first time. I think it was cool. I got to like have a room on the other side of the house, So like all the rooms, my parents and the other kids were like on one side, and then I was like. I like had my own little space.
And that neighborhood the neighborhood that you lived in, was it just like a typical Southern California, like neighborhood where the kids were just skating, some were surfers, were you hanging out with that those types?
Yeah, it was like mostly skateboarding because Simi's like, I don't know if you know, it's like a street skate mecca. Like we just produce skateboarders apparently. And
yes. Actually, one of my dear friends from back in like the 90s that was a pro skater was from Ventura, and he had moved down to Costa Mesa, but he was badass.
Yeah. And so we had like a skate lab in the town, which had like we had a skate park, and like there was, a bunch of stuff filmed there, but we skated around. We like backed up against the wash. So like in my neighborhood had a wash. We would be skating in the wash, like, and make our own makeshift half pipe. And I remember I got in trouble because we would like go and catch tadpoles in the wash water and then bring them home. And my mom would be like, "You're like gonna catch something, like you can't go just diving in the wash water,
Mhm.
And I had no semblance, but we skated everywhere. It was like a 7-Eleven down the street, and we like skated back. It was fine, it was cool. And
Right.
there was like always like a mess of kids just pooling together on skateboard sports. And then on the weekends or whatever, one of the parents would take us to the beach, and then we go have our way at the waves.
Okay.
So,
And growing up in that area, were you easily influenced? Was there a certain time, a certain age where some of the kids around you may have been experimenting with drugs or alcohol? Like when was the first time that you were introduced to anything that was mind altering?
I remember I was in 6th grade. A neighbor kid I drank for the first time that I can like recall. And uh I was 12, and I remember going to um yeah, thank you. I remember going to like the 6th grade and like telling the kids at school, and them all like looking at me shocked. Like it wasn't like prevalent that other people were drinking or using drugs or anything like that, but I had like gotten drink, and I told everyone how cool it was, right? But like reality of the situation is like I like got drunk on wine coolers, like it's not that tough, guy, and I'm bragging to the 6th graders about how cool it is to get drunk. And what, I probably had like what, 4, I don't know.
Right.
I
Right.
was like I was like 68 pounds,
Mhm.
so I was a little guy. And
Just trying to fit in.
yeah, I was just trying to fit in. There was like always like a couple older kids or something like that. And yeah, and then I went and bragged about it. And then from that point on, like basically anytime I could get my hands on it, we were trying,
And that
you
was
know.
booze. Was it weed or anything like that too?
No, I started smoking weed at like 14,
Okay.
13, 14, and like 8th grade. And that's when it like started to kind of, people were starting to smoke weed, or you kind of knew, but it was still pretty hush hush.
Hmm.
And and so anyways, yeah, about 14 years old, I started smoking weed, and then I was just a daily weed smoker every
Okay. And
day from then
during
on.
that time, how were you achieving in school? Were you good? Were you a good student in high school or junior high?
Never really. Like was always one of those kids that like if they applied themselves, the teachers would say, like if he would apply himself, like I would just consistently not turn in homework, or you know or do it. And but I could grasp the material,
Did
and
you
with
read much growing up? Were you a reader? Were you well
not
read?
really, not
Okay.
really. I mean, I didn't have any problems doing, like I didn't have any difficulties doing it, but I was
Uh-huh.
like an ADHD kid. It was hard to keep it's hard to keep my attention. and
Right.
um and
Kind of
like,
a daydreamer in school.
oh, totally. I was just like, and I was a class clown too. Like I was always looking for like, when is someone gonna not talk so I could do something outlandish, you know?
Right. Right.
And I would get in trouble for it all the time, and it would never stop me. I would just, the next opportunity ready, and it would
I
only
probably would have hung
land.
out with you.
Yeah, it would only land like 50% of the time or 20% of the time, even with
Right.
everybody.
Right.
Um, but
So
yeah.
then, in your junior high school days, you start smoking weed. You've already been drinking for a minute. Then what?
Well, yeah, I was, because I was like still like trying to, I still did the bare minimum because I was like playing sports. I tried my way at like freshman football, and I hadn't hit a growth spurt, and so that was like pretty small kid on the field and a lot of competition. Um, and then sophomore year, I started wrestling, which was like my jam, you know. I really liked it. So I was like keeping it together. But my wrestling team, we did really, really good. And I had no understanding. We were like a super good team. And so even if like you were on JV, you were wrestling kids that were way better than most varsity teams. And so we would win everything. And so we just partied all the time. You know, like every match we would win. It was like no contest. We'd just destroy. And like I wasn't even on varsity, but I just got to party with all the seniors, you know?
And when you say partying, like what were you guys just like alcoholically drinking?
Yeah, we were just
Were you
drinking and
were you doing
smoking
drugs?
weed. And we were drinking and smoking weed. I started doing other drugs. I snuck out when I was 14. And it was like 3 a.m. to go smoke weed. And we got pulled over by the police. And so they called my parents. So that's how they discovered I was like getting in trouble. And from like that point on, I was like drug tested for weed the rest of my senior year, till I was a senior in high school.
So they were testing you.
Yeah, so I started getting drug tested. And
by your parents or by
my parents. I caught an easy charge. I caught like a curfew ticket because I didn't have weed on. I ditched my sack, you know, so they couldn't like pin it on me.
A curfew charge, like a teenager.
Yeah, I got a curfew ticket
by your parents.
No, by the police.
Well, I've never heard of a curfew charge.
I didn't know.
It means like kids at a certain age are not allowed to be out past curfew. Okay,
3 a.m. is not an appropriate time for that.
Okay. Oh yeah, you were out late for being.
My friend got a weed charge because he didn't ditch his sack, but they had to they tried to stick something on me because I was clearly
to try to give you like to send a message to you.
Yeah,
let you know to turn it around.
Okay. You know, I remember I was so high that like my parents were scolding me for what felt like 8 hours. You know, and I was just like, I don't care about literally anything like this. I'm gonna do this exact same thing as soon as I possibly can.
Right.
Cool. I'll take the licks. I'm not going to tell them nothing. You know, like I don't rat on the homies. I'm telling them nothing. If anything, it's a lie. And that's it. And so anyways, I said that I started getting tested for weed. And so I started to venture out to get high. Right. There's like what, 12 panel cups. That's like 12 other panels. I gotta that are just free right now, you know? And so I started taking like Xanax and doing other things. What did I do? I did a couple other drugs.
How are you getting Xanax?
Kids are bringing them to school, man.
At this time, you were what, 17, 18 years old?
Yeah, 16.
16 years old.
15,
Kids were bringing them to school.
16.
Did you ever ask anyone, like, where are you getting these? Or did anyone
review their scores? We had like a weed dealer, and then they could get other things, and that branched out, and you know, we found other dealers. And then but I was perpetually trying to, like, we partied every weekend, we drank, right? And then I was always in fear of getting tested for weed. So I don't know what depths you'll go to like pass a drug test, but I've tried literally every way.
Oh, I'll go to many depths. I mean, I'll transport a Whizzinator underneath my leg and over the back of my shoulder through a jacket if I have to, however that may be.
From sophomore year till senior year, I carried either mine, clean, or fake pee every single day for like 3 years.
For sure. Even knowing, and also take in mind that some people check the temperature of your urine, so you've got to have a microwave nearby to warm up the temperature a little bit on the.
I had a specifically thin eyedropper bottle that my hands could warm it. I could like literally hold it enough, and it would
warm it up from your body heat.
Yeah, but it looked like an eyedropper. It got into trouble when I took a bunch of Xanax, and then I fell asleep after school, and no one could wake me up for like 8 hours. And they decided they were like, we're taking you to the hospital, you're on drugs. And I was obviously denying everything. And so then I was like, I'm going to get drug tested. I better get this pee ready, you know? But I was pretty barred out, and I dropped it. And then I like went to go pick it up and I kicked it right to like my mom's feet. And she's like, "What is this?" I was like, "It's eye drops. It's eye drops," you know. And she's like, "Put in your eye." And I was like, "Oh no!" I almost went to that. I
You almost put
did.
urine in your eyes.
I almost put pee in my eye to stay to keep the story.
And for those that don't know what the term barred out means, it means to be on Xanax bars, and a lot of kids would be they be taking these Xanax bars, however they may get them. Now, when you would take them in excess, was it like 2 and 3 at one time, or were
Yeah.
you taking one and then one a few more minutes later, a few more hours later? Or,
Yeah, I mean, I spread it out, but like, because once I start, like, I'll put literally anything in my body, you know.
and did you think like this could be dangerous, or did you know the dangers of excessive Xanax usage?
Not at all.
Not at all. You just did it.
Not at all.
You
Just
did it
did it.
because others were doing it.
I mean, at the start, but by that time, like, I had to get high, you
Right.
know, like,
You developed a dependency.
yeah. I mean, I had to get high. I mean, it wasn't like I could stop and like I wouldn't detox, but I was getting like I had to be on something every day. I couldn't face life. I don't know
Did you ever
what.
stop? Like, did you ever stop for a period of time?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to like I remember there's pictures of me like going to San Francisco with my family and I just look so miserable. I'm like 16 years old because for like a week I can't get high, you know? And
Did your parents know?
I mean they suspected they knew a piece of it, you know? But it was so muddied up with delusional and BS. I didn't tell them the truth about anything, you know?
Mhm.
So what was true and what was false, who knows, you know? But by like 17, 18 years old, senior year is where like it really turned. Like I started working at Vans. I was like working at the mall and I smoked weed every day. It was like pretty chill, you know?
Yeah.
And then like we started selling weed and and then I'd get some money. Some older friends were taking us to raves and older siblings of other people who were taking us all different places. And but we were still like, there was a little bit of fear to like, bigger drugs and stuff like that, I guess, or whatever that might have been. And but like senior year, I turned 18 early. I got my med license in senior year. I had to go to adult school with all the kids that were failing classes, and I had a car and a job, and I worked 2 jobs actually in high school, and so I had like cash in my pocket, and the party was on, like the end of high school was happening, and I went to adult school. I remember the first day someone offered me cocaine, and I was like, I'm gonna either survive this barely, this high school experience, or I'm not. I was like, this is gonna take over my life. First day. And so much so that like 2 months into adult school, my friends who smoked weed and did drugs with me had a full-on intervention with me.
What happened?
They basically were like, they didn't know the realities of addiction, right? So like some drugs were cool and some weren't, and they focused on the behavior. Like they were like, you're a complete dick.
This is on cocaine?
Yeah.
And did you do a lot of cocaine?
They made a deal with me because they basically said I wasn't a cokehead, and they were like, I bet you can't not use for 2 weeks.
How old were you at this time?
17, 18.
Okay. And
like,
so did you attempt to quit for those 2 weeks?
I think I quit on the last day of the 2 weeks. And then I shoved it in their face that like I could stop after 2 weeks or something like that.
And would
I
you
did
go do
13
coke
days.
again?
Oh yeah, many times. But they were like, you never stop. You've done it every day for 2 months. You're
So
in high school.
Okay, so this is like 17, 18 years old. You've already had an alcohol career. You've done some weed smoking, Xanny bars. Now you've graduated to cocaine. Was there any other
Yeah.
drugs in the mix? Were you a
Yeah.
psychedelic type? Were you
I had
doing any
taken
heroin?
I broke my leg in senior year of high school skateboarding. And
Uh-huh.
so I'd started on Percocets and Vicodin and that like I then I just started rummaging. I then I figured out that like people have drugs in their medicine cabinets. Who knew? You know, I made that connection, and then I took everything that said it make you drowsy in someone's medicine cabinet. I would take,
Mhm.
you know, or don't mix with alcohol, and then I would do that. You know,
So opiates were in the mix.
yeah. So they started senior year of high school to the leg injury. I was like crutching around, and I remember I had to have I had this girlfriend who was like super good. She got good grades, and she was rad. She was the kindest human ever. And I was like broken leg crutching around, and I get so high on Vicodin and Percocet that she'd have to like come and pick me up. I get to like get released from class 5 minutes early because it took me longer to get to the place. I remember
Mhm.
I would eat it like every other day in some class. I would just fall over in the middle of class because I'd just be completely intoxicated. I'd take way too much of my own medication, and then I think I turned 18, and then I got to like manage my own medical stuff. You know,
Mhm.
I could call the doctor on my own, and I could sign myself out of school, and I'd be like, oh, I'm polite, so people believe me. And so I lost my pill bottle or whatever, and so I'd get like extra refills and started working the doctors by then. And I had a med license too, and so I'd go to like I positioned my senior year to where I would like I didn't have a first period, and I would barely maybe make it to second period. I would go to third and fourth period, and I would leave for lunch, and then I would come back after school with like a ounce of weed, sell the weed and smoke weed and do other drugs until the afternoon, and until the evening.
Did you
I
graduate?
had a
Graduate?
only because my mom said you're not going to graduate, so I did it out of spite.
So you were able to finish school even loaded.
Yeah, the only class that was like a challenge for me was English, and it's because I didn't do anything. And my teacher called me out in the middle of class and said, "Why do you even show up? You have a 26%." And it was
Oh my
like a
God.
month before graduation. She's like, "Why do you come in and class clown around here? And like you're not gonna pass. It's not like you even have to show up."
Mhm.
And so after class, I went and I asked her, "Is that true?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Is there any way I can try?" And she's like, "I don't know if the math will work out to where you can even graduate, but I'll help you if you try." And she did. I wrote a paper high on Adderall, I think. Um, that had started. I'd started getting prescribed ADHD medication too, and so I started abusing that.
Was it
Um,
Ritalin? Was it Vyvanse? Was it
I
Adderall?
think
What was it?
I think I'd had Adderall for a little bit, and then like someone wised up, and then they put me on like a time release one, you know, and I
So
would
what
like,
did so you couldn't abuse it? Is that why?
yeah, it was Concerta, I think, and
Concerta.
I would still try and abuse it. Like I'd still like spend an hour crushing it up. It was hard to crush up, I remember, and try and snort it, and or take a few of them, and but we could get it. By that time, by the senior, I'd wised up. Like I could get things. I had dealers and stuff,
Gotcha.
we started doing ecstasy. We started raving. Like me and my friends started like going to fresh parties and like some of the insomniac stuff. And like, it was
Yeah.
starting to get more commercialized. Like if you were
Right.
18, you could go, you were like 18 and over. And,
So you had a stimulant phase too. You were doing ecstasy and
oh,
mollies
dude,
and all that. Okay.
all of it. And,
So okay, so you're 29 years old, correct?
I'm 31.
You're 31 now.
Hmm.
you've got double digit sobriety. You got sober at 19. Was that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you finished school. I mean, you graduated high school and all that. How long after high school did it take for you to actually decide to get sober? Was there a crisis moment, or did something happen to where you needed to get help? And did you go to treatment, or where?
So, middle of senior year, I got in trouble for doing drugs. My parents
Okay.
said, "You can't do that here." What they said was, "You can't do this here." And what uh, I heard was, "You're kicked out." So I left,
Okay.
right? I moved in with my friend. Then I got free reign to do whatever I want while I was in high school.
Okay.
And I was 18. I graduated. All my friends did the thing where they go off to college when they graduate. And then
Right.
I became the kid who partied and drank with the high school kids,
Okay.
right? Really cool, tough guy, super awesome, you know, thing. Um, what was I left to do? I had no skill other than to sell drugs. So that's what I started doing,
Hmm.
right? Someone connected me with um, someone who basically took me to the doctor, paid for my script. I got a script of oxys,
I would
and
say those were the Oxy 80s.
those were the Roxys at the time.
Oh, the Roxys. They had just turned into Roxys.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and then I went. I was going to use some, and so we split my script. I
Mhm.
had half, they had half, right? The dealer put me on, and then you could go back every 2 weeks and do that and get 90 Roxys,
Okay.
and like within weeks, I was fully addicted to Oxycontin and opioids. And at the time, I was still nursing this broken leg injury that I'd never rehabbed, I don't know if you know about opioids and like
Yeah.
how it messes with your brain. Like I had real pain created by my brain because I
Right.
needed to put opioids in me, And so like
Yeah.
I was like hobbling around with my like leg, like I'm off conscious for like a year and a half. So my
Right.
ankle hurts all the time. And so I just upped and upped and upped. They would give us Xanax. And we had a few doctors on that, and we would just
Mhm.
doctor shop. And so for the next year and a half, I went from oxys to like couch hopping to like nowhere to live to like renting rooms. My best friend overdosed. I called 911. He was saved. And this is before we knew like you could call and not get in trouble,
Mhm.
right? There was just pill bottles everywhere. I remember the EMTs like looking around this room, and there was just like empty pill bottles everywhere,
Mhm.
And then I like just couch surfed, and then I basically had moved into my car. At the time I would still drink and do stuff. I remember I would like fall asleep with a handle of Captain Morgan at like my in between my
That was my drink.
thing. Yeah, that's what was mine too. I was the only thing
Captain and Coke.
yeah, I didn't need Coke. I just drank the cocaine maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Um, but yeah, by the time I was 19, what happened is I was homeless. My friends started overdosing, going to jail, going to treatment. And a girl broke up with me, and my heart couldn't take it. It was cold. My car had been impounded.
Mhm.
And I basically mouthed off to my landlord and gotten kicked out of there.
Mhm.
And I had nowhere to go. And so I thought, well, I'd been doing heroin, mixing heroin, oxys, I stepped it up. And I
Excuse
was
me.
like,
When you were doing heroin, were you shooting it or just
I
smoking
was
it?
smoking.
Okay.
And the best idea I could come up with is that I either need to kill myself because my problems are so bad.
Mhm.
My family doesn't want me around. I can't even. I lived at like a drug den and got kicked out of like a drug house.
Even your drug den
Yeah, my landlord was high as hell. My
didn't
roommates,
want you living there.
everyone.
Right.
Yeah, and
So you're fucked off. You were basically fucked off.
I was completely fucked off. I
And you
moved
were
into
using an excess to basically just be checked out and remain checked out,
yeah,
correct?
yeah.
So then what happened? I mean, why did you seek help?
I didn't. I went to my mom's house because I needed somewhere to
Mhm.
live. And she'd let me in one other time, but I got arrested in front of the house like 6 days later. Um, so she was like, "Nope, not happening. Call your grandparents." So I called my grandparents, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll help you." And me and my grandma have the same birthday, so I could work grandma, you know. And immediately everything was fine. My life was solved. I was going to move to Vegas with grandma and grandpa. She was going to make me chocolate chip pancakes, and maybe I'll have the flu. I'll kick heroin. It'll be great. And they started looking at rehabs and had an intervention on me.
Like a family intervention.
Yeah, like experienced, coached by a treatment center, and I went to an in-network treatment program in
Ventura,
Santa Clarita.
Santa Clarita, over by Magic Mountain. And that was the first time you'd ever been to treatment?
Yep.
Was that the last time you ever went to treatment?
Yeah, because they do things like when you're about to leave, they say, "What are you going to do next?" And then they suggest sober living in front of grandma.
What were you? Okay, so wait. The place that you went to when you say in network, was it indigent?
No, it was just I had like a HMO policy. Back
Okay.
then it was before Obamacare and all that
Yeah,
stuff,
it was just a regular treatment. It wasn't bougie or nothing like that.
No, there was
Okay.
like 10 of us in there.
So you're saying when you first entered, they said to you, "What are you going to do when you're going to leave here?" And they basically let grandma know that
You're going to sober living.
we recommend sober living after.
Yeah.
How long were you in treatment?
26 days.
Anything good come out of it?
The cook said, "Hey, this life you're living, you pretty much know how that works, but you don't know what recovery has to offer you. Maybe you should give it a shot for a year."
The cook told you this.
The cook told me this. That's all I remember. I remember there
Did you
was
get
a
any
couple people
therapy
that
in
were really.
there? Was there like
Oh yeah,
groups?
I got all of it, but I'm a treatment professional now. I remember no modality. I remember none of it. I remember kicking hard on the couch, and this guy with a mustache walked up to me and was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "I'm sick, man." And he's like, "Oh, you dope sick?" And I was like, "Yeah, dope sick. Can you get the F out of my face, you know?"
Right.
And he looked at me and he's like, "Remember that. You never have to feel that way again." And I was just like, I was 19. I was just like, flipped him the bird, get out of my face, you know? They did take
It,
me to an NA meeting, and I remember someone telling a joke, and I laughed mega hard. It was super inappropriate, and it was about the steps, and I laughed so hard. I remember it was probably the first time I had laughed in like 5 years. You know?
it's interesting. I've had the same conversation with people, and I try not to say it like that guy was saying to you, but like when somebody's totally dope sick or
Yeah.
they're kicking really hard, I wish I could climb into your head and maneuver, certain thought processes or certain decision makers
Mhm.
as to if no pain, no gain. I got to
Yeah.
bear this pain, and then I never have to do this again. But for the most part, when somebody's kicking opiates, the brain starts getting a little bit better, and that the addiction, the disease, whatever you want to call it, sleeps with one eye open and is just waiting for the next to get a little bit better, to gather all the information we need so that we can then go on and do our merry little thing, and next thing you know, the
Mhm.
person gets loaded again. That's what's scary. But you were 19 years old.
Mhm.
You were in this place for 26 days.
Mhm.
um, did you go to sober living after?
I went right to a sober living. There was 18 guys. I was like 15 years younger than all of them, minimum, you
And
know?
why did you what at what point did you make a decision that I'm here to stay sober for good? Was it in the
Oh,
sober living? Was it in treatment? When was it?
it was like 6 months in.
Okay, so
I
you got a
relapsed 2
hospital
times
reservation.
after.
Oh, you relapsed. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I went home and I went to like 1,000 meetings a day, and I talked about how great sobriety was to everyone that would listen. I parroted people that I thought sounded good in AA, you know? And I was going to actually every fellowship that I could at the time.
Right.
And I was the only teenager in AA in that area in Simi Valley at the time. And
The two times that you relapsed, you didn't require going to detox. Did you
no,
detox on your own?
it was just a one day thing.
What was it? Was it opiates, alcohol? What was it?
I never did opiates again.
Okay. So it was what? Did
So
you
it was like
drink?
weed and alcohol. Yeah.
Okay. And then what made you get serious? Why? Why after 6 months did you get serious?
Well, the two relapses, I realized that like, oh, I couldn't just like mentally change. I couldn't change like the friends. Like I was gonna get loaded regardless. Like I don't have control, right? Like the powerlessness, right? I was like, oh, I'm gonna get high regardless of my own consent at some point. And so I got a sponsor, and I did like steps, and I did for all the wrong reasons, sponsor, hot girlfriend, had like 7 or 8 cars, owned his own business. He
Mhm.
like, took shit from nobody, and I was like, that's my guy. He's gonna teach me some stuff. He was cool, tattoos. Actually had a big mustache too, and
He did?
yeah,
Okay.
and then like I'm thinking he's gonna teach me some things about life, And he just read the book with me, man. Made me highlight things that I didn't see, and he walked hand in hand with me through like recovery.
Well, in a sense, that is teaching you some things about life.
He did, but not the things I thought, right? My ego and my
Right.
like selfishness were like, how do I get a hot girlfriend? How do I get this? Like how do I do, how do I get
Ego,
cars?
ego. It's interesting. I
Um,
was at my sober living this morning having a conversation with this youngster that was 20 years old about
yeah,
ego and distinguishing the ego from the soul. And sometimes I talk about this stuff until I'm dry in the mouth. And a lot of people
yeah,
will say, Pej always talks about the ego, and Pej always talks about the ego. And right after I got done talking with him in a group setting, I got a phone call from a girl that was in treatment who wanted to leave early. And like I found myself in the garage within seconds talking to her, having the same motherfucking conversation with her, right?
yeah.
Ego. So many people are so fucking blind to their ego, and they don't realize like it's your greatest enemy. Your ego's not your amigo, right? And so
Oh,
I love that at a very young age you had somebody that was putting a mirror in front of you and showing you the
mhm.
ropes. So you
And
took this thing. Go ahead.
check the ego at like 11 years sober. It only gets more sneaky,
That's right.
you know?
Absolutely. I did it at 10 years. There was shit that was happening that I was
Yeah,
giving a lot of power to my ego, my disease, my illness, whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
Um, okay. So around that time, you got sober. You started taking your sobriety seriously.
yeah.
You went through the process of the steps and all that, obviously,
Mhm.
in the very first year, correct?
Yeah. And
Okay.
then radly, like young people started coming into meetings there, and like every old timer would just push every guy my way. And so I just got the opportunity to just like, I was constantly in the book with guys,
Being
which
of
was,
service,
oh
taking
my
them
God,
through.
it was amazing,
I love
And
that.
what a service they did for me that I had no clue. It was like work, and like
Right.
none of them would stay sober. And I'd just be like, oh my goodness gracious. And then like a year later, I realized my life had like been blossomed and beautiful. I'd stayed sober this whole time, you
You
know?
said it so perfectly right now, Curtis. You said that some people think when we're taking someone through the book or we're trying to do like mentor them in recovery that we're helping them. No, they're helping us. That's all there is to it, plain
100%.
and simple. We're not being of service to them. They're being of service to us. We're being in service of God, higher power, whatever you want to call it, right? So good. So now you are helping these people in your youth, in your
Mhm.
recovery. You're still younger, to me always, but
Yeah.
but you took this thing by the horns. Now, did you get into a relationship?
Yeah. I mean, I was in a relationship. I've been in, I was in one like right when I got sober. I got into one, I started feeling a little better. Dope sick wore off, and it's time to get a girlfriend. And
Hmm.
was a lot of fuel for my step work, you know, and And then I had been in a couple, you know, by like 2 years sober, I was in relationships with like people that were sober, and I would still had only so much understanding of myself, and I'm still a young person, you know, like still 22, 23. And that time I started working in treatment and doing that, and and I ran around, but there were some significant ones, right? Like 2 years, 2 year relationship there, 2 years relationship. But the biggest one, I mean, I learned a lot. I've realized I like was really kind to people, and but I had like no semblance of like what I wanted, or like I didn't work towards like the goal I wanted for a relationship, you know, like I wanted a partner and a person, but I just thought you just be nice to them, you know, you just be nice to them, and like don't, you know, don't have too high expectations. And then like one day, like after a period of time, like you guys get married, and then there's like a house and a picket fence, you know, like I didn't understand there was like work involved. And like you talk about ego, like that's like the biggest thing I've come to understand in like relationships, is that like that blocks me from that person more than anything. And I choose to spend the most time with that person, you know? And so like who should benefit most from my recovery? This is a quote from my friend. He asked me one time, he said, who should benefit most from your recovery? The people you spend the most time with, you know, like, and so that's like even more of like a place I have to work those steps, you know, I have to like work that process of recovery and live the spiritual life more so than everything, when no one's looking, behind closed doors with the person I'm with, you know, who
Very
may or
well
may
said.
not be.
Very, very well said. So a few things. I'm not exactly sure when I first met you, but I do know that when I did meet you, I think we started to vibe right away. I
Yeah.
didn't know. I knew that I had lived in LA, you had lived in LA, and then I think both of us somehow ended up down in Orange County.
Yeah.
At the time, you were in a relationship with a woman who was your wife.
Mm-hmm. Who I met in recovery like 5 years before,
Hmm.
running around young people's events.
She was in
And
recovery too, obviously.
yeah, so she had 2 more years than me. We had met um, there. We started dating. When I met you, I'd moved to Orange County. We'd been together 2 years, and we had moved to Orange County because she was she had just gotten a terminal diagnosis, a cancer diagnosis. And
Mhm.
so we moved to Orange County to be um, closer to her family, to
Mhm.
have support. So like if we could focus on her treatment.
Mhm. And during that time, I had just been diagnosed with cancer too. What
I
kind
think
of cancer did she have?
yeah, I think you had just finished your
Oh, I
treatment.
was just done with my
You
with my
just
chemo.
finished. Yeah.
6 months of deep chemo.
Yeah. And she had non-small cell lung cancer, which is like a genetic mutation with like there's like 300 different mutations. She had like, you know, down the list of more rare, but they had started. So she had a particular mutation that was not as common.
So you know what stood out to me during that time is the fact that you guys had moved down to Orange County, I think because she needed to be closer to family, as you'd mentioned,
Mhm.
correct? And you were in love with her. You were in a marriage with her, right? And you came along with her to be with her, to assist her, to be there for her, right?
Yeah. Actually,
And
we had moved to Orange County, and it took me 3 weeks to convince her to marry me. And so we went and got courthouse married 3 weeks after I moved to Orange County.
convince her to marry you. Okay,
She
interesting.
was stubborn. She had an idea
Mhm.
about what like life would look like, and like a plan, you know, like all that stuff that like a little girl dreams of. And
Mhm.
I had like tried to like build that, right? And for her to get married and not have like all those things was against that ideal. And so I had to convince her.
And okay, so when you guys got married, did you have any idea? So, have any idea that her life was on the line?
Yeah, I mean, she had it was a terminal diagnosis. It was, it was stage 4 non-small cell lung cancer. It had metastasized to her brain. It was softball size in her lung, in her liver, in her adrenal glands. And, 1% of people diagnosed like that live 5 years.
So
And
through the
so we
process,
knew
was she
it
going
was,
through radiation and chemo?
yeah, but I was there to I just keep the hope, and cheerlead her on and walk it with her. And she started chemo. She went through 5 lines of treatment, spanning over including um, what's it called when it's not an approved medication? Clinical trial. There we go. And spanned 2 years, and I think 4 or 5 lines of treatment until she passed away 2 years later.
Did
She
y'all know that
survived
she was
2.
as it got closer to it, you were prepared for this?
I mean, treatment worked initially, but the cancer was so aggressive that it was just so hard it was just cancer management, and then it just wasn't anymore, and we knew about probably 4 to 5 months before she passed. It was pretty apparent. We just whether we would believe it or not, you know. But about 3 months, I think, before she passed away, she had done palliative care, and then we had made the decision. I'd made the decision we should move to hospice, and so she stopped all treatment. And we had the first month of that was wonderful. I stayed home every day. I stopped working. She'd stopped 6 months, I think, before she'd stopped treatment. We had our big giant wedding, 170 people. We went on a honeymoon. We had trips planned.
You're making me get emotional.
I mean, it's an emotional thing, man. I mean, it's real. And when we moved to hospice, it was just day in, day out. What can we make food and have fun and go on walks down. We lived in San Clemente. We went down to the beach, and her health started to deteriorate and her mind started to deteriorate. And I was there with her until she passed, man. And I'll tell you, it was the most powerful experience I've ever been a part of, and her and I talked. She was a therapist. So she pushed me while her mind was really there. She pushed me to go to emotional depths and talk about things. We talked about her death. We talked about what it looks like after. She made me make pretty serious commitments. And I love my wife, but she was a force, man. She was not, she was not
she was strong.
I say she was so strong, man. She sponsored girls till she was till the last 6 months of her life, over the phone. She worked 2 fellowships too, man. But she was a force, man. She told you, she saw right through you, and she saw the best version of you, and she held you to that standard, and she would tell you. And sometimes it was a jarring experience to know you were not on par, and it was the most kind and loving thing, and today I probably receive a more gentle thing, but she was direct, and so she pushed me, man. And she I grew immensely emotionally in those 2 years, and I had to. She deserved it. She deserved that. And then all of a sudden, my purpose for my day in and day out, I mean, I took care of her, and and sometimes during hospital stays, and in cancer treatment, sometimes it's you get kind of near death experiences, and I was pretty jarred by that experience. So I'd wake up at 4 a.m. and she'd be awake, and I'd have to take care of her, or help her through every daily activity, and then she passed, and I was like, what do I do every day? My sleeping schedule is off. I'm alone. All of a sudden, my room went from being like seemingly crowded to like a whole entire like country. It was giant, you know, just me and our dog. And at the time, we lived with her parents, who are both in program.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one AA, one in Al-Anon. Both work steps. The amount of amends that took place in that, incredible. Spiritual practice on the daily, you know, like we'd sit in like meetings and recovery groups and talk about it, but like try living with your in-laws and a cancer diagnosis and 4 people in a 2-bedroom condo, you know, and 3 dogs. And the amount of spiritual practice that needed to happen on all ends, huge. And they were beautiful about it. Everyone was. I just don't know how. I don't know how lucky I got. You know, like I do know how lucky I got, but I don't know how I got. You know what did I do to deserve like that day in and day in example of walking through it imperfect and beautifully. You know,
I
but
want to show you some of the comments right now. You never know what powerlessness feels like until times like these. Elena from Lebanon. Elena, oh, from Iris. You have a heart of gold, Kurtis. Cindy says she had a fairy tale wedding. You're a good man.
she did.
She said, I'm so sorry for your loss. Heart. Brian says, great conversation. Buzz says, ego's not your amigo. Lucy says, Kurtis Gerard, hello, friend.
Hi, my friend.
So there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about now.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, such good conversation. I watched you carry yourself through that process with such strength and both vulnerability, but also you were driven to continue to help others.
Yeah.
I've watched you work in the treatment setting in admissions. You are a powerhouse when it comes to helping people get the help that they need when it comes to treatment. Kind of ironic for a person that was so not really down for treatment when you went to treatment that one and only time for 26 days.
Hated it.
But you're a powerhouse. Like you are known in the community as being a stand-up individual that does it the right way for the right reasons and has good intention in making sure that people that are in need of help for treatment get the proper treatment that they need. You and I sat together amongst somebody that was a great mentor for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
We both went to an intervention training. Since then, you have gone on to do other trainings in interventions for other people. You are now currently an interventionist that helps a lot of people. I believe that you do some life coaching and some, you know, you work on the front lines with people personally too. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I'll do like mentorship, and then
Mentorship.
I'll also work with a lot of the families,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So what I found after thousands and thousands of admissions calls, which I did the math on a little bit ago, and at like a conservative number is like 6,000 to 7,000 admissions calls that I've taken
I
in
believe
10
it.
years.
There's
And
there's a
what I
major reality to that.
and what I found was that like so many of them, those parents need like someone to walk them through and hold their hand and teach them and like help them like take a look in a mirror and help them find the support that they need. And so I work with the families too. So it's a collection of things. But thank you for all those kind words. I love you.
I love you too. You already know, Kurtis. I want you to know something. I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends. I have conversations with lots of them. There's a lot of acquaintances, a lot of really close friends, and then there's deep friendships. Whenever I talk to you, whenever I get a text from you, whenever I get you on the phone, whenever you get me on the phone, which sometimes we are both hard to find one another, you always say you love me. And whenever you tell me you love me, I feel the love. I mean, like really soul to soul, heart to heart. It's a real loving friendship. And you're just a fucking good dude. Like all around. Like you are known to be a good man. And I mean,
Yeah.
just like from everything you just said today, you're very humble, and you don't need to walk around and say you're humble. It's your essence. It's the way that you express yourself, the way that you are. You're just a good man. And so I believe, without even being in the room, I want you to know, like we sat together in our intervention training classes,
Mhm.
right? And you were laser focused. You were taking notes. You were learning from a great, like one of the best. We both know that, right?
Yeah.
And then you went on to learn from other greats, right? The Ed Stortys, the Earl
Yeah.
Hightowers, these people that have been doing interventions for years and years. I have no doubt in my mind that when you're working with families, or when you're working on the front lines, or when you're doing an intervention and trying to help somebody to get help, I would probably go for what you got to offer if you were trying to help me get the help that I needed. And I could be deep into my disease, but you've just got a special way with people. You have uh, that's why I asked you early on in your adolescence, like, were you educated? Because when I hear you talk, to me, I'm surprised you weren't much of a reader, because you're well versed. You speak very well. You get your message across. It's
Mhm.
all love. And I believe the reason that you do such a good job at this is because your heart is in it. It's
I
all
put
heart, like
that.
it's all
That's
love.
first.
It's
It's
it,
all
it's
love.
first. You know what I mean?
Tosh used to tell me, "You tell everyone you love them. It doesn't mean as much if you just tell everybody." I'm like, "No,
Right,
no. I fucking mean that about
right,
that. If
right,
I tell you I love you, I love you. I
right.
want you to know that, like, and I mean, I've spent a lot of time around a lot of master's level clinicians. I spent a lot of time around a lot of psychiatrists. I ask questions. Interested. I'm intrigued. I've got to spend some of the great interventionists let me spend time with them. And I was
Right.
talking to one this morning who I just adore, and like let me run through like my thought process and why like where am I focusing here um like like honestly there's some power, right, and that has placed this all there, and it is like walked, and I've been lucky enough to walk that road and like be able to see it clearly some days, and or at least have enough good friends in my life that keep me in that direction, right. And but I pay attention. I read a little bit, listen to little audible books, and right now I'm like on a trauma kick, and I'm like trying to learn more about trauma, and maybe probably for my own deal, right? And um but yeah, I paid attention, and I've worked, but I have a high school education, you know.
Mhm.
I did get into an addiction studies program before Tosh got sick, so I was
Mhm.
into that, and I just couldn't do it when she was have that, and I love intervention. That's why I do it. I was gonna say I work with the families because I just heard so many like this. I can like probably mimic the call, the mom who's just like you talk to them every 2 months for like a year, and the like their loved one, their son, their daughter is just like getting worse, and you're like, okay, well, like you're giving them money, like okay, but you're like bailing them out of jail,
Mhm.
and like I'm not a tough love guy at all, man, but I'm thinking that like I'm a consequences for your actions guy,
Right.
you know, do I think we should lock up drug addicts? Do I think we should treat them like we treat them? Absolutely not. Do I think that, like we don't lock up people who don't do their diabetes medication,
Right.
like it's an illness, right? Like, but do I think since that is currently happening because of some of the behavior surrounding it, can we utilize that as a motivating factor to break through the delusion? Shit, yeah, like let's go, and
Mm.
so, but like that same call, right, like they're just like boom, they'll say it, and then they'll be like, well, I know you told me this, and like, but I did this and this and this, and like that person is still locked in to that system that's
Mhm.
just keeping them in the sick,
Right.
and when I couldn't take it anymore, they keep me up at night. I can't
Right.
do it anymore. They keep me up at night. And that is the reason why I like went to that training. That's why I've gone to more. I've like learned the other modalities. I've spent, like, I'll tell you, Earl said one thing in there that just blew my mind, right? He's like, dude, anyone could follow like these processes and probably be like 80% effective, right? But to be great, it takes you to take this skeleton and put your personality around it. And I've just been like trying to fill that personality
your own brand.
into. I've been just trying to throw that personality into like things that work, you know? And but I love it. I'll do it as long as it'll have me. I'll just work as hard as I can until you and I are both out of a job. I hope
that's right.
That
which
takes place.
Which will probably be a long time if our hearts keep beating and the lungs keep beating.
I used to be able to just take Xanax off the street and be fine with it. It's not the case anymore, you know?
Right.
You can't take pills off the street and it not be pressed with fentanyl, you know?
That's the way it is these days.
You know? And it's serious.
I think in the last 6, 7, maybe 8 months now, you have gone on also to work with a center that I happened to. At this time last year, they had some event where I actually caught COVID. I may have caught COVID in their outdoor part, but it was they had me speak there around a fire pit, and then later I come to find the owner of the place. We had met probably about a month or two later. His name's RJ. It's Oak Forest, right? And then I think you went to go work with them afterwards, and they're a structured sober living environment up in Agora Hills, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yep, in Thousand Oaks.
And now they have an outpatient. Is it the same name?
Yep, same name. Outpatient, sober livings. We have 3
and
sober livings.
I've gone and looked at the outpatient. I've actually gone and toured it and sat with RJ, and I was highly impressed. I mean, really, really well put together. Can you tell us a little bit about what's significant about Oak Forest? Why does it stand out so much?
Yeah. We as treatment providers pretty much have like to do this a lot of the same things, you know? We got to provide certain effective modalities, right? We all do that. Oak Forest, huge thing as it does all of those with wonderful people, right? Has a community and puts all of its energy into that community. When I tell someone when they come in and I help them, I'm like, look, man, like let's say we give them some sort of break on something. Like we make a lot of commitments to people. If we will not kick anyone out on the street who's like doing the deal. Finances aren't a thing. You come in, your insurance kicks you out, kicks you off because they think you're doing too good. You're working the steps. You're doing the deal. You're a part of helpful of the community. We'll never put you out on the street. And that's RJ's thing, you know? And, but we spend every time that first like few weeks in the entire treatment process, we spend about thinking about how, like, when we add them into that alumni community, how great of a mentor they are going to be to someone brand new. And we prep them and talk to them about that. And we for that goal. And so we have that bonfire meeting. It's on Thursday nights. It started with RJ and 3 other people 4 years ago. Last week we had 180 people, 190 people. And
at that fire pit?
We bought the treatment, we bought another house that we called the compound, and it's bigger, and so it houses a lot more people. And so we fill up the entire backyard. We park cars. We have like a whole lot. It's on 3 acres, so it's huge. Microphone, loudspeaker, bonfire going, set up chairs. There's like 40 commitments. People in our community have it. And we basically give someone a cake from our alumni, our community, every week from 1 to 5 years.
That's a big deal.
That's what makes it.
That's a big deal. I must say this, like you already know, I'm all about structured, sober living environment, sober communities. I'm about people integrating within a community and becoming friends with people and building brotherhoods and friendships and sisterhoods. And And I've been to Oak Forest. I know what kind of work you guys do there. I endorse it.
Yeah.
If anybody was to ask me like what's a solid program in the greater Los Angeles area, I'd say go to Oak Forest.
I spent like before COVID, I had decided I was not going to work at another treatment program. I was just going to work with families and do interventions.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have to convince me. I saw it for I saw it and I was,
You
how do I work here?
You've got a great
what can
detector.
I bring here? What will
Yeah.
you let me do here? You
Right.
know? And so thank you. I love it. I think it's
And I'll
great.
tell you this right now, Kurtis, they're very lucky to have you.
Yeah.
You know, I believe that you're definitely the glue that holds it together. Most definitely, one of the ones. You and RJ are doing remarkable work over there, and I really I observe from a distance, and I'm really a fan.
We're a good team, man.
Yeah.
We're a good team. And you know what? Like we run that intervention, get it. You know how many interventions you can create on a daily basis in a treatment setting with we have about 55 clients across the board.
Sure.
Hundreds. We just run crisis intervention all day long.
All day, every day.
All day. We just run clinics on it and we bring our staff and we just try and teach them like this is how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And
never a dull moment, my friend.
It's never. I mean, yesterday I felt like it was just on. It was on. Nothing that critical. Like nothing was life-threatening. It was just on, I was pretty pulled in a couple of different directions, but it was fun. I went home last night. I hit the pillow. I was like, I think I helped a couple of people today.
Yeah, my day was
I think I did. I think I helped a couple of people. Either way, I just go into the results or whatever. I just try and have impactful experiences. And I benefit from that, If I can create a real, intimate, true space with you, that is more powerful than the disease, I believe. Even just for a period of time. Right? Maybe it's not the sauce that runs for 8 years, right? But it might run for the rest of the day.
Absolutely.
Very
well. I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on today. I've felt a lot of emotions today, happiness, some sadness. I love the way that you've worked through the grief. I'm so stoked that you didn't have to use or drink over it. I don't even think it was an idea or a thought. Knowing you, my friend, are a powerful force. You help a lot of people. I'm not saying this stuff I mean it. Like I know what you do. I know what you represent, who you are, and keep on being you, man. We need you. We need more people like you. And I love you dearly. And thank you for coming today and being vulnerable and transparent about you. Such a good man. And I look forward to seeing you in person again. And when you say I love you too.
I love you too, buddy. A lot. Thank you so much. I love
Have
this.
a good day. And thank you to all the people that tuned in today. Lots of people. Cassidy said you're a rock star, Kurtis. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing your story. Thank you for all you do to help others to find recovery. And Cindy said, fantastic. Thanks for sharing your story.
Awesome.
Much love to you. Have a good rest of your day. And thank you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.